Okay, so Jean-Sebastien, thank you for taking the time to talk to me and the people at the University of Waterloo today. I think we're going to have a very valuable discussion for them. Uh, can you begin just by telling me about your role as Vice President Strategic Initiatives at BDC? What do you do, and how did your career lead you to this role?
Yep. So at the BDC, we have a ton of ambition, for Canada's economy, for the role we have to play in the economy, and as a bank, we are like other players in the industry. We need to transform to be more data driven and to participate in the digital economy and to provide customer experience that fits the needs of every entrepreneurs and our clients. So what I do is I get to lead the transformation programs. So it's made up of IT transformation. So how we do things, how we deliver, how we host, how we build solutions. Digital transformation. So how do we deliver in the digital channels? How do we build the teams to be able to deliver these solutions, but also how do we interact with our clients and our employees so that we can co-create solution that fits their needs. And I'm also responsible for data modernization, which is as many of the banks and the FIs in Canada, building on a data ecosystem that's organically grew for the past 30 years. There's a lot of investments that we're doing, both in data governance, data policy, but also the way that we're bringing this data in a 360-degree view, one-stop shop for data, and using this data both for our to give better insights for our clients, but also making every team player in BDC use this data for their day-to-day work, to take better decisions, to give more personalized insights to the clients, and to know better our clients so we better serve them. So that's what keeps me busy. Yep.
It sounds like it would keep you very busy. But you're dealing with change then, it sounds like, with your internal operations, but also with the services and support that you provide to your clients.
Exactly. And the change aspect is it's critical. And so change in our world means change the ways of working. So I said it before, for our IT colleagues, the way that they deploy the solutions, the way that we're breaking the barriers between the development and the solution building and the infrastructure and the operations of our solutions, going more in a world where we build teams that they own it, they build it, they tweak it, they operate it. So they're the ones that are now in a multidisciplinary team responsible for the solutions, for the roadmap. So that's changing our ways of working within IT. Introducing of cloud technology also changes a lot for a bank that has a lot of on-premise infrastructure, that has built over the years the expertise to maintain and upgrade and patch and make sure we operate these systems to a world where the cloud brings us more and the software as a service of this world brings us more of a commodity around these areas. So we need to upskill and transition these expertise towards new ways of working, but also in the digital side and the data side, changing a lot internally, folks that are non-IT. If we automate a bunch of processes, because that's where the bulk of the challenges in a bank and many large organization is. Today's world, the time to yes for your client, the efficiencies of your processes are game changers. And so you can throw technology at everything, but you need adoption. You need people that integrate these new ways of working in their day-to-day job so that they spend more time in value-added tasks, relation with the client tasks, and not being people that do data entry or that are pushing through a process internally, that we want technology to take care of that.
Okay, so you're making a lot of changes, and presumably those changes are having an impact, and to some degree creating some disruption inside the organization. Can you talk a bit about how disruptive the change might have been, and what you've done to manage that and make it happen effectively?
Humans, we don't like change. So that doesn't have anything to do with digital. It's hard for people. So there is a lot of literature on how to, and there's a lot of theory around how you do change. But in today's world, the change happens on shorter iterations. It's the changes there constantly. The past 2 years have been very generous in ways of working that we need to change. So you do not want to bolt on your change management strategy at the end. It has to be built in the way that you work, the way you deploy, the way that you interact with the end users. Day one must be change driven. And to your point on how disruptive it is, well, talking about data, for instance, in a world where in a bank, data is, that's the only thing we use, right? Data is that will lead to our credit decisions. Data will lead to our operational reports, to our KPIs. Everything is built around data. And there is a lot of today, people, they're used to accessing data that is raw data, or building solutions that have their own data. And then there's a lot of downstream manipulation of the data. You'd be surprised, and this is not only BDC. I've worked for Desjardins before for a number of years, and in other large banks and large financial institutions. The same data is different interpretations are different. The departments. If you go to a large chartered bank and you ask them, how many clients do you have? Depending on who you ask, they're going to have a different answer, right? Because they don't access the same data. Some will treat clients because they bank with a certain part of the bank. Some will say, no, they're both clients on the insurance side, so they're not, they're not clients. So it's like people are used to manipulate the data, and there's a lot of efficiency loss also, because they cleanse the data on their side. They most certainly apply business rules to the data, because the raw data probably is not easy to interpret. So they all have their manipulation. So this leads to hard to bring changes, because when you either want to upgrade your systems or your processes, if everybody accesses the data in different ways and means, it's hard for you to say, hey, this was your solution, this is the new solution, and the numbers, they don't balance. Why? Because there's not a single source of truth around data. So it's hard, because now we're saying, hey guys, you need to trust the fact that now we're going to bring this data, all manipulations and business rules will be applied at the source, and then you consume this data the same way marketing, risk, and financing will consume this data, and that will lead to operational benefits, because less manipulation, but it also helps us be more performant, and it addresses our operational risk around data manipulation within the organization. So it's hard because people have been working like that for years.
Absolutely. And presumably that has meant some concern amongst the people who use the data in old ways, and there's a need to move them to the new way of doing things. What do you think are the most important factors in a successful digital transformation program? So when someone thinks about managing their own digital transformation, where do you think they should put most attention? What are the things that they should see as being the most important things to do?
Yeah, I think the biggest flaw in digital transformation is that it has the word digital into it, because people, they associate digital to apps and websites and robots of sorts. But to be a truly digital organization, I like to use like the iceberg analogy, where the apps and the websites and, you know, whatever sticks out of the water, that's what's visible, right? That's what's visible from your clients. But underneath the water, you have a first huge chunk, which is your data. You know, how do you use this data to have a better client experience, be more insightful, be more personalized in your in what sticks out? And underneath that, even bigger are your processes. So if you want to be a digital organization, which should be, you know, one of the outcomes of a digital transformation, really have to truly look at these 3 layers and how do you start delivering experiences that are able to go do a full round trip within these 3 layers to deliver on the experience. Because if you only focus on the top end, let's say, for instance, I've seen organization like discount brokerage, right? So you want to, like, so your students are probably more used to Robinhood of this world, or discount brokerage of sorts, but, you know, all the chartered banks, they have discount brokerage. And so I've seen example, and I like this example, where there was this bank that was offering an online account opening. So you would, you know, quickly swift through the different processes like you would do on Wealthsimple, very easy to onboard. So what sticks out of the iceberg? Very good. But then once the account is opened, what do you want to do? You want to trade? Well, then you need to transfer funds. Then you need to log in to your banking account, and then on the bank, you must add the account that you created there. Then you must do transfer, and then you have to wait 48 hours before the funds are there because the back office hasn't automated this process of depositing funds that you transferred from your checking account to your brokerage account. So very good outside the water, but you left a lot under the water. So how do you go about, you know, wanting to deliver this? There's sort of 2 things, right? Maybe you will not be able to automate everything day one, but you at least, you know, need to come up with a first iteration, what I will call a client journey, right? You need to establish a first client journey that says, hey, maybe it's harder to open joint brokerage accounts, or maybe it's harder to open, you know, accounts that you can trade with margin account, right? So it's different. You need credit, or trading options is harder than trading stocks, right? So find something that is easier, and then onboard your clients that fits this eligibility. Use your data to bring a personalized experience, and then automate the process so that you put yourself in the client's eyes. And what do you want to do? I want to trade. I want money to be there. I want to see that I'm buying stock and it's there, and, you know, day one I have it. So think about these ways, because if you try to automate the whole iceberg, it's going to take you 5 years, and maybe in 5 years you'll deliver something that was a good idea 5 years ago. So that would be number 1. Number 2, digital organizations. I mean, you know, people leaving their house in the morning, it's keys, wallet, mobile, right? So today, people are used to this. The large GAFAMs, so that your Google, Amazons, Facebook, and sorts, they got us hooked on knowing that I'll get in the car and I'll plug it and Waze will be there, and I'll have a reminder that my flight is in 2 hours and there's traffic on the highway. Like, I'm used to this, right? So as a more traditional organization that wants to become digital, you don't want to be Google, but you at least have to look how your clients, because, you know, the people, they don't make a difference, right? They open Google, they open their banking app. You know, you're on your phone, your bank app is probably the only app you haven't chose, right? Because you bank with TD, you download the TD app, right? You're not going to open a checking account with BMO to see if their app is good. So so it's on us to deliver the best experience, and you know, we must deliver also on the omni-channel experience, because large banks, FIs, we have the branches, we have physical channel, we have call centers, which is direct channels, we have websites. So you don't want your client to feel as if they're the quarterback of their story. You want to be able to deliver on a frictionless omni-channel experience, where if they decide to start something on their mobile, I want to apply for a mortgage on my mobile, that's up to me, right? That's the interaction, the channel that I chose. But if down the experience I have questions or I'm stuck and it's written 1-800 mortgage, and I click on it, I don't want the person answering the phone saying, "Hi, JS, how can I help you?" Well, I started a mortgage online. Okay, what rate did we give you? What are you looking for? You want this to be without channel breach. You want this channel to say, "Hi, JS, I see you started to apply for a mortgage online. How can I help you?" And continue the experience there. That's the expectation for digital. So I don't know if you noticed, but there's technology in what I said, but there is a lot of change in the way that you want to become one bank or one organization throughout your different channels, and that's where the bulk of the challenge is. Yeah.
Very, very valuable advice. And one of the things you've talked about has been multidisciplinary teams. You mentioned them earlier in our discussion. They're particularly empowered, high-performing multidisciplinary teams. Can you talk about a bit about what you do with those and what guidance you would have for people who wanted to develop them in their own organization?
Yep. So multidisciplinary team, we haven't invented, something new, but, over the course of time and in the past 20 years where, internet brought a lot of companies to put together teams around IT and project management, we were in a world where every year you say, "Hey, this is my budget for IT investments," and you have your grow, right? You continue to upgrade your licenses and obsolescence, and you're growing existing, but you also want to transform on other stuff. So you make decisions, right? Let's say you have $100 million envelope. You're going to decide, of course, there's going to be business lines and people coming up with their own projects. So it's probably going to be $250 million ask, and then you need to narrow it down to 100 million. I call this the Hunger Games, right? Every year we do this, and people try to pledge for what they want to do. And so you accept a bunch of projects for good or bad reasons, and then you build teams. You build project teams of saying, "Hey, here's your scope, your calendar, your budget," and then try to manage that triangle for the next 2 years. You have your money, and then you build the team, and then this team is assembled of mostly IT people, and then you're gonna ask business folks to chip in on business requirements, sometimes during testing. And it led to a lot of conflict and to a lot of the low not meeting expectations a lot. So building these multidisciplinary team, we're sort of taking the issue the other way around, and we're saying, "Hey, we're a bank. We have credit systems, we have underwriting systems, we have risk systems. These systems, no matter what we're going to want to do in every year for the foreseeable future, we will need to invest in this. We have a website, we have a mobile app. So instead of building these teams and then dismantling them at the end of the project, right? Because there's no money, and then you sort of ship it to ops. Say, no, let's build capabilities, feature-centric teams made up of, yes, IT people, but product owners and people from the business, people that have field experience, people that have, that's lived the process of today that we want to improve, and say, you know what? For the next foreseeable future, this team will have a lot of work to do. And then so you build the backlog around that product, and then the way that you look at your yearly investment, then it becomes a question of managing the workload that you're sending to these teams, but they always have a backlog to iterate on, and the scope can change, because let me tell you something, your 2-3 year project, the scope will change anyways. So you want to have these teams that are able to embrace change and not seeing as disruptor, because every change I throw at them is going to jeopardize either their calendar or their scope. So you want to make sure that they're always working on the right things. And for that, well, you need ownership. You need ownership that comes from the business, because as IT folks for so many years, we've been the ones that were accountable for saying, hey, now it's been 4 years, we haven't upgraded this system, and now we're 5 versions behind. And so we're going to need to freeze the operations for 6 months because we need to do this major upgrade that comes with a bunch of risk around it. And so then IT, you're sort of caught, as the folks that, but a lot of the time it's just every yearly budget Hunger Games before, your project wasn't accepted of doing an upgrade, right? So it's shifting the narrative of saying, hey, business folks, you're the risk people. You want risk engines. Well, you better make sure you maintain these engines every year and do smaller investment of making sure. So building these multidisciplinary team around these area of focus really builds empathy between the teams, more collaboration, and the business, which are at the end of the day the owners of these capabilities. You give them the real total cost of ownership. They now know how much it, and they have then the burden of deciding on the investments you make. And it's coming even more important in the cloud world, where most of the cloud solutions are sort of pay as you go. Because in the old days, you have 200 servers in a on-premise data center. It's paid for, right? So the accountants, it's in the book. You have your servers, you use it. But in the cloud world, if your risk analysts decide to send models and you're using a lot of the elasticity of your cloud, it's going to cost you more money. Now, probably you can back it by a business case, but it's not IT that has to decide what you do with your infra. We must bring show back and charge back to the business lines of being able to help them accountable for this. So it cannot be not multidisciplinary. Today we need to have everybody, and let's be fair, all businesses now are, it's not, IT is no longer a cost center. We're a player at the strategy table. So let's share the accountability on our deliverables.
Absolutely. And I guess overcoming the barrier that there often was there between IT and operations, right?
Exactly. And it's hard for operation teams to always be on the losing end of being at the end of the process when you're normally over budget, and you probably cut costs on quality and stuff like that, and just ship it there. And then so you had these teams of saying, hey, solution or development teams, you'll be rewarded on the number of functionalities that you deliver, and on the operation sides, you'll be rewarded for the uptime of the systems and making sure that there is no system failures, availability, security of the systems. But at the end of the day, they become risk avert because they say, hey, you guys, every time you introduce change, I have a system failure, so I don't want change. And on the other side, they're saying, every time you want to do a change, it's complicated working with these guys, right? So these two worlds need to work in better collaborations. Yeah, totally.
Okay, so we would usually see significant changes in skills as you change the technology and undertake transformation, both technical and non-technical skills often. To what extent has this been a challenge, and how have you addressed that?
Talent, and speaking to students, talent is something that is top of mind, either for reskilling or bringing today's talent in the new ways of working, but also making sure that we can invest in our talent, because there's I'm sort of a bit puzzled on this question, Mr. Carr, because over the course of the years, we sort of over specialized some of the work that we do in IT, meaning, you're a firewall person, so you open ports on firewall and you make sure that the firewall is this, and then you are a F5 person that manages telecom routers and stuff like that. So it becomes a world where every time you want to do something, there's like 24 lines of work on the end-to-end of what you want to do. So I feel that today, going back to these multidisciplinary team, we really need specialists on some areas. Machine learning, AI, cybersecurity, enterprise architecture. You need specialists, but more and more we need more generalists, because if you want these multidisciplinary teams to work, they need to be pretty autonomous, right? So if every time they need something, they must lean on other people in the group to be able to unblock them, that makes that, either they're not really autonomous because they always need other persons, or when you build more teams, you put contention points on the people that have the sole ownership or expertise to do stuff. So the new technologies that we're seeing, CI/CD. I don't know if you work into that, but it's continuous integration, continuous deployment, or pipelines. Everything around automation brings us in a world where a lot of the manual work, or a lot of the heavy specialized work that is being done today is automated. So the more that the talent, the people that we have on our teams are able to automate most of these tasks and build on automation and routines from other teams, the more autonomous they become, the more generalist they become, because we really need people to understand technology and just not a piece of it, because that's harder. So that's the way we're reskilling people. That's the way we want to work with people coming out of school. Obviously, there's a lot of specialties, but organizations that are now counting the IT people in the thousands, it's really important that people can do many tasks depending on what's the current challenge that we have as a group, because it becomes a nightmare of capacity planning if not. So I would say be curious because if you're curious and you touch a lot of areas, then you become somebody that can fit in many contexts, and sometimes discover stuff that you didn't even know you wanted to do, right? I have people that went to engineering school and they learn how to do web development and everything, and once they hit my teams, they become truly passionate around quality testing, automation, DevOps, other stuff. So there's the more people are curious and they're willing to try different stuff, they become better technologists, but they're also working on their, in French we say that employability. They work on being somebody that can play different roles in an organization. Yeah.
Very interesting. Amongst the people that I've been speaking to about digital transformation, this is becoming a bit of a theme, that people who are managing digital transformation have a range of experience in the field or in the organization or in the industry that they're part of. So just really quite interesting that seems to have emerged as the people who are most successful. Okay, I also wanted to ask about cultural change. How important is that? And what advice would you have on it?
So there's a saying that culture will eat strategy for breakfast. So and being somebody highly invested in delivery, culture is not something you can deliver, or culture is not something that will happen overnight. And you can only have one culture. Like if you say, hey, we're this digital transformation and we're gonna put together this 10-page deck of saying this is the digital transformation culture, it's not gonna work, right? Or you'll be very isolated in your island. So in an organization, there is one culture to start with. If you want to change that culture, then you really need to go to the roots of the organization. It needs to be top down. It needs, so the tone at the top is important. I'm not saying you impose the culture, but I'm just saying that the organization that do these culture shifts or culture change, people are reminded every day, this is the strategy, this is what we want to do, these are the the behaviors we want, and then working into your management and your leaders, these are the type of behaviors that we want. And sometimes it's going to feel awkward, and sometimes it's going to feel uncomfortable, but that's where we want to go. So culture is very important. How does it affect transformation? A whole lot. And especially like if you look at different areas, I spoke about ways of working earlier, but only think about agile ways of working. In a world where the middle management is used to have a team, and they decide, and they sit on a bunch of committees, and they're always the person that is consulted. Oh, you want to have you want to have these reports, or you want to work, oh, you have to talk with Peter, right? Like the leader was the sort of visible person that had folks working for them of putting together these reports and everything. The agile world sort of shifts these lens in what we call empowerment, where you say, hey, I have take my multidisciplinary teams. I have these 4 teams working on risk. They all have a product owner of sorts. This person can decide, and every time he has a decision to make, he's not going to call his boss. He's not going to go up the food chain of validating, because this person is empowered with the decision. Now, we're not going to leave that person for 2 years, make decisions and then figure out at the end, because the way we work in Agile, while we're sprinting every 2-3 weeks, there's a demo, we see where they're going, they give transparency on their backlog. So there's a lot of way for managers to keep up with these decisions, but not be on the critical path of each decision, because then you've just created your single point of failure that has a direct impact on your velocity. So culture, if you look at traditional organizations, it starts by your middle management. It starts by behaviors, and if you work on these, if you're able to have empowered teams, if the management becomes more, you students could read on servant leadership, and I think this generation expects this from their leaders. That's a change of posture, we say in French, posture. That's a huge change for a lot of managers that were went up the ladder of a world where it was one type of management that was rewarded, to now having confidence of empowering people. And so there's a big culture shift there, if you want to integrate new ways of working to deliver digital solutions, like not only like a bank, but like a leader in the digital sphere. Yeah.
Thank you. And I just have 2 further questions.
Yep.
The first is on performance measurement.
Yep.
How would you measure digital transformation and assess your progress and success?
Yep. So not not everything that can be measured is important, and not everything that's important can be measured. So I like to use this because to a certain extent, of course, you want your digital transformation to be reflected on your client experience, right? So this is done by more classic approach. So you have either in the industry, net promoter score, CVS type. So these are methodology frameworks to measure 3 questions, whatever. So you have your traditional survey. You ask the client, you've just renewed your mortgage. How do you feel about it, right? So you have this, but analytics, web analytics is a powerful tool also, because you can track your customer journeys online. You can see where they go. You can see where there's churn. They can see where they abandon. You can see where they leave stuff in your shopping cart and everything. So make the data talk. So there's a lot of stuff you can measure on client experience. Of course, you'll want to measure your efficiencies. So you're saying, hey, I'm doing, and you can use technology for that, right? You can use what we call process mining, where you say, hey, I'm going to go and look at a particular process, and you'd be pretty surprised sometimes how many alternate routes there could be for a process. And you're saying, hey, I don't know, I want to sign up for a life insurance. So you mine that process, and you see that, different channels, different actors will lead to different process. So you say, hey, I want this process to be leaner. So you sort of have your baseline, and then you try to improve this process, and then you retake this same picture 6 months later. And if you have more lean process, it'll have a direct impact on the time to yes, the quality, also of the service. So there's that, there's the efficiency, there's the time spent. And overall, employee satisfaction is very important because, you know, if you're a large organization deploying new digital capabilities, these 500 people answering the phone in a call center, they become your ambassadors, right? So if they're, you know, if you're delivering great client experience, but when they phone in, the person on the phone always has problems and they have to switch in 4 different systems to get the info, they're not going to be happy, but it's going to reflect on the experience that the client gets. Nobody likes to be with someone on the phone that says, the goddamn computer today doesn't work, you know, like, or sitting in a bank where the person has a screen between you and them and just, you know, typing stuff in an old system. So taking care of employee satisfaction and employee experience on what you're delivering, and that's why you need to have them in your multidisciplinary team and build co-creation with them. This is a very important measure because it has a direct impact on your client experience. And, you know, of course, banks, you're going to measure the dollar. So at a certain point, are you aiming to have more loans? You know, are you aiming to have bigger? Are you aiming to work on, you know, client segmentation on which you don't have reach today? So that's also very important to work with your marketing team of saying, hey, you know, who's the market for this new solution? Today's world, it's really important to be able to say, hey, you know, who do we want to talk to? Because depending on this segmentation, and it's not only demographics, by the way, right? There's a lot of different data points that play into segmentation, but who do we want to talk with? And then, you know, on what channel is their preferred channel of choice. And then if you convert or you are able to onboard these type of clientele, well, then you see it in your numbers. So you're saying, hey, we want to sell a mortgage for first home buyers, so we're going to reach for, you know, people that are in what we call active life, so post university, before kids. I'm aiming for that market. Well, you can measure it. You can measure it. You know, if you're selling more mortgage to these people, you can measure that your solution had the impact. So there's a bunch of things that can be done. Yeah.
Thank you. And my final question. Some of the people who are watching this will be completing their degrees soon, starting their careers. Based on your career experience, what advice would you like to leave them with?
Put me on LinkedIn and send me your resume. But apart from that, I'm not even kidding. I'm saying like be curious. Like you will start in this world, and there is so many things that we're looking for today, and so, you know, don't stop learning when you get out of school, because I'm sure, and, you know, Waterloo has a great reputation and everything, so I'm sure you're getting out of there with a lot of hard skills or learning that's based on what you've learned and the experience that you've gained. But you know, be curious around what you're going to see. If you haven't touched into too much data, everything's available today, right? You want to learn more stuff on data. There's a bunch of free classes online. There's a bunch of providers out there that are willing to give you free trials of their and their environments and everything. So try stuff, because you want to be the person that can do the job they're hired for, but you want to be the person in the team that sometimes comes up with solutions, because there's so many new stuff out there. But you also want to be able to differentiate the hype, because there is so much hype in the industry that sometimes it's better to hold off. Because remember what I said earlier, your culture, what you can measure. If I want to measure better client experience and everything, it's not because I see this cool new AI something solution that this I need. So, you know, you need to be able to differentiate when a solution is finding for a problem. So focus on what's the problem you're trying to solve, and if you're really truly interested by solving this problem, then you'll find the appropriate solutions to fill the problem, to fulfill that problem. And that's where, if you're curious and you've seen different stuff, well, you can be the person that comes up with saying, hey, we should do a proof of concept on this thing. It's really aligned with what we want to do, and I really feel there could be a difference there. So that's ways for me as a leader, somebody that comes up with this, I will always find time to be able to tell them to try it, and it's ways for you to maybe, you know, build the role that you really want to do, because that's how you're able to put it on the table. So I hope it helps, but be curious it would be my advice. Yeah,
I think it does help, and I will make sure that people get a link to your LinkedIn if they want to send you their resume.
Sure.
You never know, there may be some there who would like to do that, but I really appreciate
Yeah.
you talking to me, JS. It's going to be very helpful to the people who are watching, and you know, I'm grateful to you for doing it.
Pleasure's mine.